All right, so let's move it on to Green Bay, a team that's near and dear to your heart. So Matt LaFleur, another guy in the Sean McVay tree, he's taking over from McCarthy. And what we talked about last year, Brad, was that McCarthy, you were kind of complaining about this before McCarthy got fired. You say, McCarthy, his scheme just seemed stale, and the receivers were never open.
You're right.
And so the thought is now LaFleur comes in, and what I said about LaFleur when we were doing, our season review, season reviews and just talking about kind of the future is, can LaFleur come in and give the same shot in the arm to Aaron Rodgers that McCarthy did for Favre back in the day, right? Rodgers, look, he still had a nice season last year. I think he had like 25 touchdowns to 2 interceptions or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Correct.
Injured year. And an injured year. He was not as strong with his knee because he had a knee injury. I don't know if it was meniscus or what, but he just wasn't himself last year. So now you have LaFleur, a new system that should, in theory, scheme wide receivers open. You still have talent, and now this year you also have Aaron Jones. So you're the Packers guy, man. What do you think about this setup?
I think that the results, they're yet to be seen, obviously. I do think they're going to be better because I don't think they could get much worse than what they had going on. I mean, I don't think you spent a lot of time watching the offense. This is how good Aaron Rodgers is, by the way. Not to, slurp the guy. Mm. But their offense was terrible. Nobody was ever open. And I doubt that was Aaron's fault.
Yeah.
All right? And they still managed to win a bunch of games with I'm telling you, this was like the most anemic offense I've seen in a long time. They had nothing going on. And the guy still threw for 25 touchdowns and 2 picks.
Yeah.
Okay. Both, I think, were against Khalil Mack. Right. And the offense was terrible, and McCarthy had to go. So from that standpoint, to answer your question, I think they are going to be better because I just think any amount of change from where they were at is going to be better. Now, if LaFleur, the Spanish goalie, has any bit of talent, who knows? If he has any bit of zest or talent or ingenuity, then it could be super dynamic. But I think they're going to be a force.
Well, we talked, and we'll talk about the AFC South, I think, next week. But in the review, we were talking about Mariota. We'll get into the whole Mariota thing. But Mariota went from a completion percentage of like 50-something, I think, 2 years ago to like 68 last year. Now, he still sucked. We'll talk about that next week. But that the completion percentage went up, right? And if he can somehow make Aaron Rodgers more efficient, and if he can just get some of these, like I think Aaron Rodgers, by the way, if you could tailor make an offensive system for him, it would be the Shanahan system. Mobile guy, bootleg, and receivers always open 20 yards downfield. I mean that
that's the thing I always wondered about McCarthy. Why don't they ever bootleg and roll them out? Because if there's one quarterback that can throw on the run, maybe even better than in the pocket, it's that guy. And I like the whole thing looked like McCarthy. It's like the guy was drawing up an offense for Brad Johnson. When he had Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
It's like everything that he was coming up with didn't fit what Aaron could do. And Aaron managed to win and play well in spite of McCarthy. That's just how it looked to most people anyways, especially me.
Yeah, that's actually really – I've never heard that, but you're exactly right. He was a typical pocket, and Aaron Rodgers – it's the timing West Coast offense, I get it. But so is – the Shanahan offense, but they just add a little bit of wrinkles. Now, keep in mind, so LaFleur, if you're going up the coaching tree, right? So LaFleur is in the McVay tree, but McVay comes from influences of the Mike Shanahan offense from his time in Washington and Jay Gruden. So there are going to be these kinds of concepts in there. I think it's going to be a good fit. To me, it's all about whether or not Rodgers can actually stay healthy.
Right.
And we're going to see what that is. But I do think Aaron Jones is going to be – and I do think, by the way, Rodgers has a rebound season if he can stay healthy. It's that's the big if for me. I think Aaron Jones is going to be used more in this system. I think they're going to take more pressure off of Rodgers, but Rodgers is still going to be great. I think Devontae Adams is going to have a huge season because I think, instead of him making a ton of contested catches, I think he will have some open opportunities. So I think he'll have a big season. From a fantasy perspective, Jimmy Graham might have an uptick in touchdowns there. We'll see. But Geronimo Allison, Valdez-Scantling, St. Brown.
Love Geronimo.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to be the other prominent guy there because I think there's a lot of talent, and that's a good problem to have. For me, I think Geronimo is going to be the second guy there. He had some injuries last year, so we'll see. We'll see what goes. But I do think the Packers have an up year, and I didn't say the over/under, Brad. It's they have them at 9 wins, Brad. Are you taking the over or the under there?
I would absolutely take the over, and maybe I'm foolishly optimistic, but I have to say, Sean, I don't think so, because you may agree with me. The older you get, the more you realize that bullshit could be just around the corner at any moment. So what some may call pessimism, I call realism. It's like, hey, listen, all right. It's like when a 25-year-old gets a new girlfriend, everything is butterflies in the world is, and you go, okay, all right, well, check back in 3 months. Let's see how it's going.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So maybe I'm foolishly optimistic, but I don't think so, because I like what I see. I like the defensive pickups, and I think Aaron comes back with this new coach invigorated.
I completely agree, and the early returns are showing just that, invigoration. And I'm glad you brought up the defense, because before we're moving on to Minnesota here, I'm glad they kept Mike Pettin. I think he's an underrated defensive coach. I think he had a lot of holes to fill. So that retention, in addition to LaFleur, I'm bullish on Green Bay this year. I like them. I do think that they could, and I think they will win the division. I think they're more like an 11-5.
I agree.
Maybe even 12-4. Maybe even 12-4.
Right.